has been an unfortunately windy day today. But that is definitely not going to stop me from enjoying this Optic because it's a nice clear day. It's a little windy, but nice clear day. Glass is great. And the performance has been very good. I'm really satisfied with this so far. Let's see, 13.5 mils with 69 grain at 1,026 yards using just holdovers. Hopefully you can hear these okay. Let's see, I'll turn my mic off and hopefully you can hear that okay. In a little bit, I'll throw up a camera so you can see some impacts with this setup right here at 1,026. It makes me really happy when it's a first round impact. Now your DRS 3.5 to 15 is going to come with these scope lens covers. So there's one for the objective and the eyepiece. This one is a 39.5 and this one is a 58 for the front objective. So these are just kind of a rubbery type plastic, more of a plastic feel, and they're going to do the job of protecting the lenses. And as soon as you start shooting, you're just going to take those off and put them in a pocket so you don't lose them. Going to the diopter here, everything on this scope, I'm just going to tell you now, is very buttery smooth, very high quality. This feels like, you know, a pretty premium scope actually. The coatings, the fitment of the pieces, just the rotation, this rubber around here, it's not a hard plastic, it is a rubber ring. Very, very smooth, lots of range of travel. If you have eye issues or you just can't seem to get reticles clear, I don't think this will be a scope that gives you trouble because there's a lot of range of travel. So you're going to move to the left or to the right, looking at a clear wall or maybe a blank sky, something without features. And just for a little bit at a time as you make little minute adjustments until that reticle is clear for your eye. Mine, basically all the way in, was clear for my eye. This is technically a fast focus eyepiece, and that doesn't bother me at all. It didn't move accidentally. I don't think it would for you either. I don't think you would have any issue with it. There's enough there for firmness that it's not just going to rotate out of the way. In fact, I think this is actually a little better than most optics are, so I'm pretty happy with that. Moving on, as far as features go, here is your magnification ring. There is no cattail, and there's really not a need for a cattail or a mag ring assist, because first of all, you're only going from 3.5 power to 15, and this is buttery smooth. Again, it's got a premium feel, absolutely premium. You are not going to be disappointed in the fitment or the amount of force it takes to move this, because it's like a sheet of glass. Just so smooth. Firmness, I would say firmness is nice. It's not going to give me issues in the winter, but it's not sloppy and loose. And the grip that I'm getting from this texture, these little pyramids, is definitely sufficient. I don't have to put a lot of pressure into this to make it move. Very, very nice. So you could grab it and go all the way to 15 in one hand movement as well, or all the way down to 3.5 if you needed just really big field of view. Awesome. Mag ring is great, very, very good to go. If you wanted to add an assist, you know, there are aftermarket assists that you can get nowadays that fit most ocular bells or rings. That's just not bad at all. Very happy with that. Good design. All right, now looking at your second focal plane adjustment. So rear focal plane knobs are in the rear, and the first focal plane knobs or turrets are in the front. The second focal plane, they don't need to have increments on there just because of the way that you set this up with the second focal plane and the part of the reticle that's controlling. You don't need that. These are functional. The caps are not in the way because I'll show you in a second. These numbers, it's actually not 0 right behind here. The 0 is offset to the side so you can still see. And if you look right here, I've put it off a 0.5 mil for the windage, and to reset that, you don't actually need to take off the turret at all. You just lift and push down again like that right there, and it falls into place, and I can actually see it's on 0. Even if I wanted to dial a little bit, I could still see some because the witness mark is offset. So this is not going to impede the function of seeing that if you needed to dial for windage or you want to see how many tenths you're clicking. Again, this is a mil configuration optic. You can get it with other reticles and other style turrets and all that, but this is the mil version of that. So the same thing is true with this. I wanted to give you a good look at this because, again, I don't use windage for real world dialing unless I'm setting to 0. When I'm actually shooting long range, unless it's incredibly windy, I usually just hold for windage. And so what I want to show you is the elevation. The elevation is something I'll dial on. Again, if you want to reset the 0, you actually lift to operate these and move it to 0. This is not going to cause it to click or move the reticle. When you lift, it's just to reset the cap on 0. Now, if I was actually going to dial, I would just dial, just directly. I don't have to lift to do that. I don't have to push down to do that. And it does line right up on 0, as you can see there with the witness mark, so I can find 0 after I'm done. If I decide to dial, which is going to move that little bubble down in the reticle, and I have tried that a number of times. It's worked pretty well. I'll talk about the clicks here. Now, you can't really hear them, so I won't give you audio on it. But I would say tactile in feeling. They line up on those witness marks pretty good. It does not have a 0 stop, and I would say for this reticle design, I don't really need a 0 stop because I'm mostly going to be using this in a holdover fashion. I don't really need to dial on here, although I can, and I would be very comfortable doing so. I'm just really enjoying using holdovers lately and trying that out more and more, and it's got a very functional reticle. But if you really wanted to and you knew exactly what your data was and you wanted to put that bubble around something like a deer or a target that maybe, I don't know, critter of some sort that you wanted to shoot, you could get a lot of confidence in these turrets that you're going to find that target and be able to put the bubble right on it, even if you wanted to dial and bring it down. Otherwise, you could just hold over. It's got a very functional reticle. This optic comes with an adjustable objective. This is a really nice one. Fitment is awesome. Feels very high quality. Does have a texture on there as well. So if it's winter and it's a little more firm, or your hands are wet, if it was sprinkling, like earlier today it was actually raining and I did get caught in the rain while I was shooting, this texture right here helps me move that adjustable objective, which fits nice. It's relatively firm, but not in a bad way. I would actually rather have it be just slightly firm rather than be slightly sloppy, because sloppy adjustable objectives are a sign of a bad design, and they usually end up breaking. I've had some sloppy ones just totally fail. So I'd rather have that fitment be nice and tight and just slightly firm, the way that this one is. It gives me some confidence that it's going to hold up, it's going to be rugged. The minimum yardage is 30 yards, which makes a lot of sense. This is a hunting optic, and so I suppose for a lot of us, especially here in Minnesota, the minimum shot we're going to take, some of us the maximum, is 30 yards. And so that's a decent distance, I would say, to start off with for your parallax or objective adjustment. 40 yards, 50 yards, this is where your witness mark is, by the way. 75, 100, very common deer hunting distances, and then it does go to 150, 200, 300. I think they designed this well because these are distances a lot of hunters are going to be using. It's numbers that they're going to be running through, and as far as the calibration goes with the numbers, for my eye on 15 power, it does appear to be accurate down to the very line itself. And I did check for parallax error by moving my head around. Didn't see any issues, but even if you wanted to move beyond that 300 yards, you do have some flexibility there to go out to infinity, just like so. So you've got your, right around 500, around 800, around 1,000, and then just infinity is somewhere in there. But for most hunters, with a 3 to 15, this is a stellar design, really well thought through, and I'm actually quite a fan of the way that they achieved this and got this just to feel like a very premium piece. One thing I wanted to point out is that on the sunshade here, this is threaded. You could add another sunshade on here if you desired to do that, but there's just a little bit of the text here, and everything that's done or engraved on this optic is just very, very tactful. I thought they did a really good job with their branding on this. I don't usually comment on aesthetics very much, But this is done really, really nicely, especially for a hunting, like a precision hunting optic. I thought they did such a nice job of keeping the form, the factor, the style, all pretty true to a hunter, and it just feels really high quality. Everything about it does. All right, because I don't believe that these turrets are turrets that I'm going to be dialing on personally a whole lot for exactness, I'm probably more going to be going towards the reticle for exactness because there's no tracking error in a reticle when it's designed well, and turrets in general can have a little bit of tracking error, and they usually do have some. So for this reticle, I would probably just go towards holdovers. It's a nice fast reticle, and it really lends itself to that. We'll talk about the reticle a little bit. Starting off, if this is a hunting scope and a precision hunting scope, which is really what I see this as and what it's advertised as, I would say the reticle needs to be something that can be acquired quickly. And it can't be just another dot style reticle unless that dot's going to be a lot bigger. This gets around that, and so instead of a dot, it has a circle. And that second focal plane optic actually interrupts the circle with kind of a duplex feel to it, which is cool. When I look through it, it's very easy because the top lines and the lateral lines are actually relatively thick. And one of the ways that they came up with this, I was doing some research and reading about the optics and Shepherd scopes in general. So with this DRS, some of the inspiration for that reticle came from some of the old optics. I remember some of the old German sniper optics. They actually would take their optics and turn them upside down because they had really thick lines and chevrons and stuff that would go up to a point, but it might cover up the target or their holdovers. So what they would do is actually turn their optics upside down sometimes, and that would give them an open field of view on the bottom, and they could have a more precise aiming point in certain situations. So that was an interesting little find there from Shepherd scopes in some of their listing. And so this reticle has the second focal plane itself having the thicker lines on the top and the sides. And so those are not going to get in your way. I really don't think so. That shouldn't be an issue. I didn't have an issue with it. But that being said, it helped with a really quick acquisition of where is the center of the glass, where is the center of the reticle, what am I aiming at. It was just very natural. It felt a little bit more passive, whereas with some reticles, especially precision rifle scopes where they don't have lateral lines, that's frustrating to me. I don't like that. This one has lateral lines, and they're very thick and bold, and it's quick, so I can get down to where that reticle is, but it's not so thick that it interrupts the image of that center area, the target area right in the core there, that main bubble that you're going to use to aim with. So I like that quite a bit. There is hold under, so they did a great job with that. I always want some hold under, so I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And it doesn't obstruct the field of view, but it's a good amount there. And when I know that I'm just a couple tenths high, if I have a faster ammo that I'm normally shooting with, then there's a couple ways I can correct that with a scope, but I just like using the hold under. And so it gives me a little bit there just to know if I'm shooting long range and I end up hitting a couple tenths high, I can know how many tenths high it was, and I don't have to guess right off the bat. Something that's kind of cool is that the mil scale reticle goes 14 high. Technically, there are bars. It's not all split up into 2/10 or even 5/10 bars, but there are bars that go up. So the first 2/10 are broken up, or the first 2 mils are broken up into 2/10. And as the bars go up, you get up to 10, 12, and 14 mils for bars up there, which is really neat. And that's in the second focal plane and first focal plane overlap area there. And then you have a grid at the very top. So if you were trying to get an estimation for distance, since you have the second focal plane reticle covering up some of the lateral lines on the extreme sides there, they give you the option to use something a little higher. So there's a bar up there with a mil pattern across of it that goes 14 mils to the left and to the right. So you can use that if you're arranging something perhaps. They do have a ranging feature in this reticle. In my eye with 15 power, that ranging feature is just a little bit too small for me to use it regularly. So there's one thing. I think it's cool. A lot of people have better vision than I do, so they would maybe get more out of that. But for me, I struggle with that ranging box that they have. Just looking at targets that are going to end up being, 400, 600, 800, 500, 700. Yeah, the way that it's set up makes sense. And if your vision is decent, I think on 15 power, you're going to be able to use that. My vision, I just struggle a little bit, guys, being honest with you. So that ranging feature for me, it's not doing anything, but it's also not getting in the way. It's not a problem. It's placed in a spot in the reticle where, you know, take it or leave it. And again, most people would say I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So it's a nice extra is the way I would look at it. When I look at the full mill windage marks, they're very, very clear. They are dots. They're very clear. It's easy to see. It's easy to pick out. The field of view is not obstructed because, again, hunting. So the idea is you want to be able to see as much as you can of your target or those impacts. And those dots for windage are really, really nice. Now, every other line has a few more 10th markers in it, and that's probably very useful for a lot of people too, so you don't get lost in just a grid. I think it's really important once you start getting into Christmas tree reticles to have some sort of breakup from line to line, and also to have the numbers numerically indicated next to the center post. I am more and more convinced of this, that when we put our numbers at the wide branches of the tree for your windage and your mill holdover lines, I think those numbers out there, it just takes your eye away from the center of the glass and you end up looking around. Whereas if it's right next to the post, it's very quick to assess, you know, was I 4 mils low? Was I 5 mils low? Hopefully you're not that low, but it's just something that makes a lot of sense to me. It's way faster, and this one is not overly complicated, but it has everything that I need. In fact, I think this is one of the better holdover based mill reticles that I've seen. It's called the H mill, by the way. Yeah, I really like that. Very glad that they put the numbers, those indicators right there next to the stadia, the holdover, and it goes to 18 mils. So the neat thing about that is, I'll go up to 9 power here. Yeah, at about 9 power, 8.5, 9 power, I can still see all 18 of those mils. Field of view is not bad on this optic. You can see all 18. If I go all the way up to 15 power now, at 15 power, I can still see my 10 mils, which is to be expected. And at the very bottom of the glass, those numbers are perfectly clear. The reticle is very, very clear. No issues with that at all. It's a great image, guys. Let's back it off to about 10 power. Some people in their hunting scenarios are not going to go beyond 10 power. They would just rather have that field of view. And I can still see at the very bottom of the reticle, I can see 15 easily and barely 16 mils of holdover at 10 power. Now for hunting in my context, I might not go beyond 8 power when I'm actually taking a shot. Identification, I'll probably crank it up to 15, but then when I'm actually taking a shot, I'll probably back it off to 8 power. And at 8 power, I can see all 18 mils. My reticle, because of that dual focal plane situation, I can still get really honed in, and the circle dot, I can put it on a precise spot, but I can see it quickly. My eye doesn't have issue picking that up. And I think putting it on the shoulder of a, I don't know, whatever critter you're hunting, if you're an elk hunter, deer hunter, I think putting it in the, you know, boiler room on any of those animals, it's gonna give you enough field of view, enough clarity, and enough assurity that you're putting it right on that spot. I think with the precision rifle scopes, one of the issues I was running into is with having a really small center dot and trying to put it on a big target, it actually sometimes gets a little bit lost. So this is a decent idea. Now I'm not going to take you through how to do this right now because my video would be even longer than it's already been. But if you're curious how to get back to your like manufacturer 0 or the 0 setting to be optically centered in the rifle scope, which is an important thing because you always want to be looking through the center of the glass if you can, and if you can help it. You don't want to get to the extremes and start losing windage or elevation. Over time, when you're zeroing on different rifles or moving it around, maybe it gets bumped around, I don't know. That's something that you might want to consider, is that resetting to factory 0 might be an important thing. If you're going to let your buddy borrow it or something, they have a video detailing exactly what you need to do. It's very simple. It's not complicated math, but you're just going to find out how much internal travel you have up and down. There's a grid inside there, and then you're going to have windage. You're going to do the same thing, and it's a really simple process. I think it probably take you 3 or 4 minutes, maybe if you're new to it, 5 minutes, but it's not hard at all to get this optically centered again. And I just thought it was really nice that Shepherd provides that online. So if you have questions or technical issues with their products, do talk to them. They're really great with contact. It was easy for me to get a hold of people, but also check out their YouTube channel because I think most of the questions you would come up with, I think they've already answered.